Meh. Fucking great time to invest in Far Harrod, am I right? Yuck.
Good morning and welcome to the Hobby Breakfast Show, kicking off your month with Hobby Chat. I'm joined today by Onod.
Hello.
And the Mayor.
Hello, I'm here.
And to improve viewer retention, we're going to do the news at the start and then we're going to do the main podcast topic out directly afterwards. So, Onod, what's happened in the world of Book of Boba Fett this month?
Well, very exciting news in Book of Boba Fett world. There's still no news. That's the news.
Okay, Mayor, what's happened in the world of Kill Team?
Well, there are. Why is this the thing you associate with me? There actually was something that happened with Kill Team.
Was it good or was it bad?
It was quite funny.
It's in the middle.
Absolutely lovely GW manager where I live. He the best GW manager I've ever met. He was explaining to me the biggest rule change that they made in the new edition. Except I don't think it's actually a rule change. I think he'd been playing the last edition wrong, and actually,
Nice.
so the biggest update and change was basically something that they didn't even update.
Let me guess. Is it that you can link combats?
No, I wish it was though. I wish you could link combats. That's literally an in-joke. No one will understand.
That's the point.
Did anyone else link combats in SBG? We'll have to cover that.
I think we have actually talked about this before.
Not one time.
I think we have talked about it before. Wow, well, that really was good Kill Team news.
It was.
I've decided not to buy the new edition.
That's fair.
Because
it
doesn't seem to have changed.
Shout out to your GW manager, Tyrone. He really is the guy.
Tyrone.
Onod, what's happened in the world of Halo?
Oh, for fuck's sake, can we just actually...
We've got to build the suspense.
No, we're just wasting time. We could be playing Divinity.
Okay.
Come on,
man. Onod, what's happened in the world of Middle Earth strategy battle game?
Yeah, we'll do the full news. Let's start off with the new stuff. How many of these models did we look at last time? I can't remember.
3 of them.
Okay.
The new models.
I'm pretty sure the new we looked at the new start set, right? And did we look at the new Helm Hammerhand?
Yeah, we did.
So it's the other 2 then. So since we've last been on, there've been 2 new models. One is called Fracker. He's a kind of girthy boy. And one is called Checks Warhammer Community Lord Thorn of the Wold.
Oh yeah,
They're all baddies.
Yeah, one of them's the main baddie, and then who Helm punches to death, and then one of them is a Rohan traitor, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, they look fine. I'm already like. The film might be really good, and I might enjoy the film. I am slightly already over the idea of basing a model range on the film now that I've realised that literally everyone is just a generic Anglo-Saxon looking guy.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh god.
The good guys are and the bad guys. I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
It was hard to tell that these were baddies until I read into them.
It's
there are tells, but...
The only real differences between these models is like minor color palette differences and how fat they are
and what they're made of.
Oh, they're resin, aren't they?
Yeah, they are all resin.
Yeah, a couple of plastic, a lot of resin.
So there we go. I mean, they're nice models, but now you know they're resin, you know they're going to be like what, £21 each. Assuming
if they come with cav, it's
yeah.
It'll probably, I reckon, with new GW pricing, it'll be like 37 quid.
It'd be weird if they didn't come with cav because they're Rohan. But anyway, yeah. So they're going to be spenny, and it's a shame because it kind of means that it's not the big plastic refresh that we were kind of hoping for.
Yeah.
The bigger news and the thing that everyone would have already talked about, when I don't think we're really going to talk about it in much depth, because I think we're going to, as we've been saying, talk about our thoughts on the new edition when it actually comes out and we actually have it. But they announced that they're squatting a load of minis.
Yeah. Which
Bad face. Although I didn't really get affected very much.
Yeah.
I get the logic of, and like I think the idea of cutting models to keep the range a bit more streamlined or whatever the crap they said is fine.
Which is also total bullshit.
Yeah, it is total bullshit. But like, it's not the most offensive reason in the world. I think they've gone a bit over the top, and I think some of their logic is a little flawed.
Wow, the logic that they've given you isn't the real logic, is it?
No. I mean, it's
the marketed spun load.
It's a business decision.
Yeah,
I'm actually surprised, like, that people are surprised. Do you know what I mean?
Well, no, because
it's like they're a business.
Yeah.
Because, like, in my mind, I'm just thinking to myself, Games Workshop is a business.
Yeah.
If they have sold a canned army to Joe Blogs, and he isn't interested in buying any other army, well, he's not a Games Workshop customer anymore.
No.
So they don't really care what he thinks.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
And also, I think people are confusing GW's motivations with, like, just because they haven't done what you wanted doesn't mean they hate you. It just means you're not the person they're targeting.
It's a business decision.
Yeah, they're not trying to fuck over their community.
Yeah,
they
need new sales because they have shareholders.
Yeah,
and like, if you go to tournaments every year and you view yourself as promoting the community, like, you're right, but ultimately, like, Games Workshop isn't a games company, bizarrely, given their name. They're a miniatures company.
Yeah.
Like, and this is something that I find really, like, annoying. Like, people perceive value in models because of their in-game.
Yeah.
But, like, that's not the value of your models, guys. Like, the reason that they can get away with charging you, like, 30 quid for a single Space Marine, which looks exactly the same as a Space Marine that costs £3 but has a slightly fancier sword, is because you perceive it to be more valuable because you're told it's a hero. Like, the perception is, like, skewed. You should never value your models based on what they do in game, in my opinion, because they're always going to change the rules. So you're always going to end up feeling at some point bad about it when it gets nerfed, or when, in this case, it gets removed. I think the more scummy stuff is where they've removed stuff which hasn't been around for very long.
Yeah.
That feels to me a lot worse than, like, removing something that came out 20 years ago. It's like,
fair enough.
I mean, that's kind of inevitable. Removing something that came out a year ago, 2 years ago, that feels a bit rougher.
But it's being done. I mean, to be fair, in some ways, it is being done to keep things fresh, but the motivation is not for the benefit of the consumer. It's for the benefit of them as the producer of new models. And yeah, I think also people forget, like, the MESBG community has been around for fucking forever now, and, like, most people will probably now have collected, not everybody, but most people will have collected all the armies they're interested in. So the only way GW can get you to buy new shit is either by bringing out books or by making the old stuff that you've got no longer valid and making you buy new stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of the problem they're going to run into, because as much as there are people in this community that buy literally everything they ever bring out, they're also the people who aren't going to be, like, leaving the game because of this, because they're so invested. Like, the sunk cost fallacy is real. Like, they're not leaving the game, guys. They're a safe sale. And Games Workshop, like, for every person on the internet complaining about Games Workshop, there's like 10 who probably are just quietly buying shit,
rubbing their thighs in excitement of new shit.
Yeah. So I mean, it feels bad.
Yeah.
Like, but capitalism is the problem.
Okay. Moving on.
just wanted to throw that in there for everyone.
Maybe think more about the society we live in than the
Yeah,
companies that exist.
we
as
live
a
in
result
a
of that.
society.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything else to really talk about. I mean, we'll get into. As I say, we're going to do a video when the new edition's actually released, where we'll talk about it properly.
Yeah, and we can give you the best informed, badly informed opinion that we're capable of producing.
We can go more in depth on our very kind of just middle of the road take on
capitalism.
What's happened. Yeah. It is funny though, because I've watched a couple of videos just to see what people who are more invested in like competitive stuff than I am.
Which videos did you watch? Name them specifically.
I will not be doing that. I'll tell you once we. It is funny, like listening to people like discussing like have they done this for balance and like all of these reasons. I'm like, no,
fuck off.
Like guys, they don't really care about the game. Like look at like games. For every person that Games Workshop employs to write rules, they're literally employing like 10 times that number to actually make the miniatures, produce them in the factory, sell them, market them. Like they don't. The rules is to make you think that these things are valuable.
Yeah,
it's a con, guys, that we like benefit from because it's a fun one.
Yeah,
but it's like somebody selling you fucking magic beans and telling you that they're magic. Like they're only magic if you believe they're magic, dude.
But we've had the magic bean analogy before.
Yeah, I'm not really sure it worked.
No.
But I'm going to make it one other time this episode and stick around to hear that.
Can you timestamp it so people can zoom ahead?
No, because I want them to have to listen to the whole thing. And there won't be a magic bean reference.
Just all the comments will be, did I miss it?
Yeah. Secret magic bean reference. I'm going to use another analogy to beans, so you have to work out when when I'm referring to beans without actually referring to them. A legume. I'll refer to the legumes. Right. Should we talk about hobby?
Yeah.
Has anyone done any? I've done a little bit. If we're struggling.
Mare did some Iron Hills. I don't know if I did any.
Oh yeah, of course you did your fucking.
We went to a fucking tournament.
Mare's miraculous ability to paint shit when he's given 24 hours, but if he's given a year, fuck me.
Like... Yeah, it's so true. It's
also, he's not given 24 hours by anyone else. Just given 24 hours by himself.
I was even given the opportunity by OT to not paint my models because he was going to bring his own.
You literally own the exact army fully painted you wanted to bring, and you were like,
and I absolutely refused.
This is the only way I will get stuff done, and I was like, okay.
And it's so true, depressingly so. But hey ho, so I painted some dwarves. I'm pretty happy with them. I brought them up to what I view as the minimum standard, and then proceeded to think to myself, oh, you know what? I might just finish these guys, and I haven't touched them since. So. Mm-hmm. I need another tournament, which is annoying because I said to myself that I wasn't going to do very many more SBG tournaments in the short term. But maybe there'll be some good tournaments in Worcester, I'm sure.
OT, you've done some hobby for Legion, right?
That doesn't sound like me.
Oh, okay, we'll move on then.
Let me check my photos. You talk about yours, and I'll check my photos to see if I have them.
Okay, I'm emergency subbed in. I'm the John Duran of the podcast. Yeah, so
to be fair, he's shit when he starts, but he's decent off the bench.
No, he scored a goal when he started the other day. I have done some Blood Bowl painting this month, and I have painted a Tree Man for my Old World Alliance team. I got the new Tree Man model. Crazy, they make 2 plastic Tree Men for Blood Bowl, which I think is insane.
Excessive.
They clearly must sell a lot of them, but I now own both for different teams because I clearly have a problem. This one though is my favorite. Love his little like leaf mustache. Excellent decision from the sculptor. I then painted a dwarf referee. For no reason other than I think that it will look aesthetically cool. It doesn't. Well, it does have rules, but we're not using them because it's unnecessarily complication.
Yeah.
I then painted a undead dwarf kicker, which I got from Grebo Games, I think, a long time ago. It's just been sitting around. I unfortunately snapped his arm off and then couldn't be asked to glue it back on. But I figured as he was undead, I'm going to pretend that was deliberate. And then I painted 6 Trojans for my
random.
I kind of, I kind of have little erratic projects which I kind of pick up when I don't feel like painting Games Workshop models that are mostly just there for a bit of painting. And you know what? They're actually much cheaper than Games Workshop models. And
better.
Seeing as I never play games anyway,
who cares?
It doesn't really matter what I paint. So there you go. But yeah, they were pretty straightforward and good to paint. I want eventually to do some Trojan War games. I'm probably going to use Sword Weirdos, to be honest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because Sword Weirdos is quite flexible and you can just build whatever, can't you? We love Sword Weirdos, as we'll talk about later. And OT, finally, I've filibustered long enough. You should now be ready.
I painted Bad Batch and a squad of Rebel Troopers.
Wow. You see, the problem with you in the hobby section is you don't talk about it for long enough for me to actually put the images up when I edit.
Let me try again. I painted.
I hate you so much.
Yeah, they were fine to paint. I'm actually really pleased with Bad Batch. I did a much better job with the armor than I did when I painted my clones, and the Rebel Troopers are just another squad of Rebel Troopers to add to my fucking army.
Yeah, you really needed more rebels, didn't you?
Well, I have actually. I currently on my desk now. I have 2 more squads that are waiting to be painted.
Of course, you fucking do. And I bet when they release that new unit, you're going to buy loads as well.
This is the new unit I got.
Oh, there you go then. I didn't realise they'd been released.
Yeah, they're out. Hard plastic is actually really good, to be fair. I'm very pleased, and that's
hard plastic is good.
Hard plastic pain to assemble though. I've also ordered my Blood Bowl team, which I'm very excited about.
Oh yeah, the skeletons.
Yep, hype. Sounds like.
Oh shit! Yeah, I painted that goblin as well, didn't I?
Oh yeah, your little weird goblin thing.
Little ninja scuba diver goblin.
Oh yeah,
he's good. Yeah.
Wow.
I forgot about him.
Had a fairly good hobby month.
It's quite a productive hobby month. That was like the kind of hobby that we used to have at our peak. You know those months where we'd each painted like 40 models about a year and a half ago when we were just like absolutely obliterating painting for some reason.
And people still watched our content.
Yeah, when people still watched our content. Oh, those were the days. But it's okay because the loyal kind of 70 to 80 people who watch every video are the ones that we really like.
We're just cutting the wheat from the chaff at this point. Turns out there was more chaff than we expected.
We're removing all the people who are here for the SBG content,
which is what we advertise the channel on the basis of.
And we're just gonna keep the people who are here for the shit banter.
Hey.
Right.
Other games
October. A rip-roaring success when it came to having fun playing games. A mediocre month when it came to channel views, but who cares? We played 4 games, and this was us kind of having a bit of a break from Middle Earth whilst we waited for the new edition. We played Sword Weirdos. Yes. We played Blood Bowl, specifically Gutter Bowl. We played Star Wars Legion, and we played Leon Rampant,
as they call it.
What was that last one?
Leon Rampant.
Oh yes.
Does anyone have any preference about which one we talk about first?
We did them in the order they came out.
That would make sense. I was going to suggest we didn't do that just to be annoying, but that probably is the best way to do it, right, man? I'm just going to quickly open a throat soother. It's a nice ASMR.
What's your whistle?
Lemon. So, that's going to be fucking dreadful, isn't it?
Yeah.
My throat is thankful, but my brain, knowing that this is going to be dreadful audio, is now annoyed. But never mind, we're going to...
Just cut it and move on.
No, because it's going to take me like 10 minutes to fucking eat this, isn't it? So...
Yeah, no, that does sound bad.
Yeah. Maybe I'll just go push the talk for a second. Let's talk about Sword Weirdos. So, Sword Weirdos is a tiny skirmish game. It costs like £4. You should totally go buy it. Like, honestly, it's worth £4 just for a punt.
Definitely is.
We had good fun with it, didn't we? We technically used God, I really should have fucking had this right sweet.
Do you want me to do the talking?
Yeah.
Okay. So we used shut the fuck up, Jesus Christ. We used a mod that Onod had made called Badger Weirdos, and we basically combined Sword Weirdos and Burrows and Badgers together and created an unholy combination that was the best of both of them.
Yes.
Okay. We played a co-op game, the three of us against AI. Sword Weirdos does have a AI. It's a bit of an adaptive AI, isn't it? It gives you like different range of enemies that you can face up against, which is quite interesting to play against. Yeah, I think comparing it to like Burrows and Badgers, I think it obviously has a lot less depth, but I think if you just want to play a couple of quick games, that's no bad thing.
I really like the system. I think it was very underrated in that, like, the simplicity of the system is what won it out for me, and the 2d6 being not reliable but better than a single die because you've got that consistency with the bell curve sort of thing going on, and we're able to adapt it to our characters and a different game. And we also used the AI system in the Legion game we played, which was pretty fantastic as well. And just worked really well.
Yeah, the possibility with the AI, I think, is what is going to be most fun for us. Because we've, I've gone and got Space Weirdos. I was struggling to remember what the sci-fi version was called then. Which is pretty much exactly the same thing, but, you know, basically guns rather than swords, as you'd expect. So yeah, just being able to like do small little narrative games where we can kind of do co-op or that sort of thing. I'm quite looking forward to that, and I think that that's something that we're kind of like quite enthused by. I don't know if it would be as good in a versus game. I think it might be a little kind of swingy when like you just roll a dice to see if someone dies.
Because the difference is
like Blood Bowl, isn't it?
Yeah, you don't get wounded, do you? You either die or you don't. And like and I think that was
we
fine.
Haven't played it in co-op.
Yeah, it was fine against AI because like that's kind of what you want to happen. You don't want to be tracking like everyone's stats when you're playing against AI. But I think like and definitely in a campaign, the possibility for insta-death is problematic.
I think for you two especially, because you're a little bit more comp-minded, you would not enjoy the versus match as much. I think I'd be alright with it. I don't think I'd mind so much, but yeah. But I think for co-op games, absolutely great. And for £4, you can't really go wrong.
Yeah, I definitely advise it for co-op. Like, I don't know why co-op just never came into my head, like in all our experience wargaming. And I know they exist from playing board games. There's lots of co-op board games and single-player board games. But I just never thought to myself, you know what, I really need to play a co-op co-op war game.
It's
But
because
actually,
Games
having played
Workshop
it,
don't make them.
that is
Yeah.
true. I think it's probably one of my favorite things we've done recently, just doing co-op.
Yeah, I think co-op is something, especially for when we do narrative stuff for Middle Earth. We were already talking about trying to do like a co-op experience or like an experience of like a games master, but I think that this has kind of like confirmed and given us that kind of little confidence that it's like a viable thing to do, and it's not actually that difficult either.
Yeah,
because you can just give it your AI a set of like commands, basically, just like move towards the closest model, and like it's fairly straightforward to do. But yeah.
How did you find doing the rolling for them? Because I know that you were basically doing most of the AI control. Did it feel cumbersome, or was it well made? Or
I think if you had too many models on the board, it would be a little bit kind of like finicky. And we almost certainly got rules wrong in terms of like exactly what the AI should have done.
Yeah.
But I think because it's co-op, it doesn't matter. It's like as long as the AI does something, like it does.
It's not like anyone's losing out.
Exactly. You're not like too fussed if like, oh, I should have targeted this model rather than this model because it specified this. It's kind of like the AI shot its bow and arrow, like it missed, and it's like everyone was like, hooray, our guy survived. So it was I thought a good thing, and I think we fairly enjoyed like running the idea into Legion.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we're at the kind of point where we're probably gonna basically take the AI idea that he created and then modify it for different games. I think is probably where we'll end up going with it, but I think I definitely want to use Sword Weirdos. I think it's interesting as well because you can do like using the AI solo games as well, and I think that's quite an interesting thing to do, especially if it's like trying to do like a small scenario for skirmish stuff. And I think it would work perfectly well for like small historical things as well. Yeah. Like a few knights having like a melee you could do, or you could do like gladiators.
I just love how it's adaptable. Like it doesn't rely on a set universe or anything.
No, you can just give them whatever weapon. Like the list of weapons is pretty complete. And there's actually a little bit of variety because each weapon does like a slightly different thing. There's like interesting little rules you can use your kind of like command points for each turn. So yeah, it was I think its strength was its genericness.
Yes.
Are we rating them or are we just rambling?
I've made a section for grades on the slides, but we don't have to if we don't want to.
Were we going to grade them A through to E?
I think it was A plus through to D was where we settled.
Okay. So A plus A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
Or should we do it like a video game where it's like S, A?
I mean, my mind goes S, A, B, C, D, but we don't have to do that.
Oh, that's because it's a tier listing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, scum. No, we're doing A plus.
A plus, fantastic. Cool. So what are the end of the scale here? A plus is like literally a perfect game. Like you would always like recommend it to everybody, irrespective of what their interests were. And like D is something that we would never want. You regret buying. Basically, you'd never want to play it again.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think Sword Weirdos is an interesting one because I think I would advise everyone buy and try it just because it's so cheap. You're not really gonna miss out,
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that it's like the perfect game.
No.
So I don't know if we want the scaling to be like. I think maybe A should be buy it, and then A plus is like buy it, and it's like really, really good.
Sure.
So on that basis, I'd say easy A.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like, there was nothing about it I really disliked. Like, yeah, I think it is just a blank tapestry on which you can put whatever flipping scenario you want to try out, and it'll probably actually fit fairly well. So yeah, I'll chuck it in an A.
And I think as long as you realize, like he writes in the rule book, it's not a competitive game.
Yeah.
Base the rules on what the model actually has, so that you don't exploit, war gear combinations. Just do WYSIWYG and then just roll some dice, and it's good for that, and that's what it's designed for. So I think it does the job perfectly. For what it is,
like if you play a game in the way it's designed,
yeah,
work better.
It's interesting.
And if you don't spend like 10 plus years trying to break a perfectly good rule set.
Are you talking about baked beans here? Is that what you're doing? Are you making a legume?
I'm actually talking about Age of Sigmar.
No way. Age of Sigmar actually is almost 10 years old, isn't it? Fuck me, that's crazy.
Happy birthday. What came out next? Blood
Bowl. Sorry, Age of Sigmar is not just Warhammer Fantasy. You're shitting me.
Warhammer Fantasy's like 40 years old, dude.
Fuck me. That means I've had my fucking skeleton army for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
They're not painted.
You've had that army for over a third of your life.
Yeah, imagine if I'd left it on a shelf at this point. It'd be absolutely laid in dust.
You wouldn't need to paint it then,
in a box. Yeah.
Skeletons would look good dusty.
True.
Blood Bowl.
Blood Bowl.
Yeah. I'm a fan. You have to embrace the randomness, and I struggled slightly as on Odd Nose to not try and make it competitive.
I mean, I think it's fine to be competitive in Blood Bowl as long as you're happy with the fact that you won't necessarily win just because you're trying. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
Like you can sweat it, and you can be more likely to do well because you can know the right order to do things in to minimize the odds of things going poorly, and you can know strategies to get a touchdown, and you can know when to score a touchdown against an opponent. But you're gonna roll a 1 and fall over and die at some point, so it's not always going to work out. Like the worst player is sometimes going to win just through luck. But I actually kind of like that because that's kind of how sport works. I kind of like that, like a terrible team run by a terrible manager once every 100 games gets the win.
Insert Pyrian Flax video here.
Yeah, some people really don't like it. I don't think that I'd ever go to a Blood Bowl tournament.
No, that would be fucking awful.
I'm sure that, like, if you're really into it, and the community I hear is actually quite good, and it's fairly actually separate from Games Workshop. Like, the Blood Bowl guys just don't give a fuck about Games Workshop. Like, Games Workshop killed their game. They kept it going for 10 years, and then Games Workshop brought it back, and they're like, okay, like, we're happy. We're happy you brought it back, but actually, you know what? We're kind of good 3D printing teams, so we'll buy from you if we want to, but we also won't if we don't want to. And
that's why there haven't been 8 editions of it.
Well, perhaps, yeah. But yeah. So Gutter Bowl specifically, which is what we played, probably not actually the best version of the game to start out on, and I think we're going to be playing the version of the rules called Sevens. More.
Yeah.
But it was good.
I enjoyed the randomness. I tried to embrace it. I played a few more games since we played our games, and really enjoyed it. The randomness goes both ways most of the time, which makes it feel a bit fairer. I played with my partner, and the first thing that happened was my lizard man blitzed her Amazonian warrior and murdered her. We worked out after the chance of that happening, it was like 1 in 400 or something. So
good.
That was pretty unfortunate. We just restarted the game straight away. I was like, that doesn't seem right. This doesn't seem fair.
It's funny how in
Oh.
Blood Bowl everything seems to have a ridiculously small chance of happening, but happens. I think that basically just everything has a small chance of happening. So it always
Yeah.
seems unlikely, but actually that's just because everything's unlikely. Does that make sense? I don't think that makes sense, does it?
No, it does.
Oh, it does. The mask guy said that I made sense. Hooray.
There are so many different possible outcomes, all
Yes.
of which are unlikely, that
That's
one
what
of
I was
them
getting
has
at.
to happen and will be
Okay.
unlikely.
I'm glad that what I said is actually a thing, because
Yeah,
I was kind of thinking to myself, it would make sense if this is a thing, but
Mm.
that might not be how it works.
Mm.
Good.
We'll see what the people say.
I don't know if our viewers will know much about Blood Bowl. I think that we're very much talking to a group of people who are like, what the fuck are they on about?
Well, we may not be talking to anybody.
Yeah, that's fair. I think everyone's turned off now that we've finished the very small bit that we did about
Our
Middle
very
Earth.
shit overview of the news.
Yeah. I personally enjoy the mechanics of Blood Bowl. It basically is a board game, isn't it? It's not
Yeah, it
really
is.
Yeah, it's one of the books. Yeah,
it's a janky board game that's designed for shit to go wrong.
a beautiful janky board game.
As someone who doesn't know anything about Blood Bowl really and just watched this game, I thought it seemed interesting as a game. Like, I think I would part of the reason I said I think a tournament would be awful is because I think if you were to take this seriously and you're always trying to make optimal plays, because a lot of the game is designed to be unpredictable and to screw you over, I think it would feel bad if you were, say you're in like the final round of a tournament and you'd gone undefeated and then it all just went to shit just because that's how the game is. I think that wouldn't be great. So I can understand that side of things not being great.
Yeah.
As
I think
like
the kind
arcadey game, I can see the value.
I think the kind of person that goes to Blood Bowl tournament is kind of at peace with that, though.
Yeah, I think you have to be, right. Like, I don't think
Yeah.
you can play this game a lot and actually try and like build a reliable strategy. I mean, I'm sure there's a way to
Well,
optimize, as you said, but like you.
I mean, I think
over.
90% of what you're doing in a tournament list is building a team which is less random. It's like
Okay.
giving them skills which makes things more likely to happen. Hiring the star players which are more reliable, and like you're basically trying to mitigate what the game is trying to do to you as much as possible, and that's kind of like how you get better is just maximizing your chances. And that's going to appeal to some people and it's going to really not appeal to other people, but I don't think we're ever gonna play it competitively.
No,
we're going to play it amongst ourselves and we're going to have some fun with it.
Just a league idea and focus on kind of like the narrative.
But it is nice to know that like
XP.
There are probably a lot of. I mean, I like that with this game more than most. You can, and it's designed to be a league game, which I think inherently is probably less competitive than a sort of tournament scene. So you do have that option of playing it less competitively. In a more accessible way.
I mean, the league system is kind of like, I guess, what narrative is to SBG, right? Because if you were to have a narrative in Blood Bowl, it would be that your guys are playing in a league.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like the
narrative play.
This is the fluffy way to play it. It's just most people play it the fluffy way. It's like a different community, isn't it? Like more people in the community are interested in playing it that way than they are playing it any other way, which I think is increasingly quite unusual for Games Workshop games. Like, I think this and Necromunda are probably really the only games which the community is mostly, focused on more casual stuff. Because like 40k, AOS, very not like obviously I think there's always the majority of people are casual, but what is actually talked about and what the community focuses on is competitive. Middle Earth's quite competitive. Don't really know what the fuck Horus Heresy in the Old World does.
No.
Just sort of whatever the fuck. So yeah, it's just kind of like, if we were to rate it,
B.
B.
Yeah, I think I'd go for a B. Maybe a cheeky B plus.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't like a game where I'm like, I could see myself picking this up like Sword Weirdos all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a game where I feel like we're into it enough that we want to like play out a league.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Cool.
Was it Legion next?
Oh no. Which was next?
I think it was Legion, wasn't it? Yeah, it's Legion.
Legion.
I mean, we know what OT. Should me and Mayor talk about Legion, then you can come in OT?
I don't think there's much point me talking about it.
I think this is specifically the.
I think it's
the
just
co-op one we did.
Yeah, but I think we can talk about it in
you can
general.
Talk about Legion more generally.
I think Legion is a competent game that happens to have a lot of mechanics that aren't necessarily what I look for in a game. But it works, it's competent. There are moments of fun. I would never want to play it really competitively just because I'm not invested enough to learn it properly, basically.
That's fair. I've enjoyed the Legion games I've played. I enjoyed our co-op version of Legion. I think it is quite different to a lot of the games we play, and there is maybe more of a focus on giving you tools to control your turn, which I do enjoy, in that it feels less RNG. With the picking cards, I think that's one of my favourite aspects of the game. But at the same time, it does feel a bit. What's the term when you're sort of bookkeeping? Yeah, that's the word. Feels a bit. There's quite a lot of bookkeeping, which is fine. But I prefer. I mean, is there a balance between complexity and playability?
Do you think there is a lot of bookkeeping, or do you think it's just the manner in which you bookkeep makes it look like there's a lot? Because I think that Legion ends up looking very cluttered, but I don't know whether it's actually more than keeping track of your character's fate, will, might, wounds in Middle Earth if you had like an all-hero list. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's just it looks cluttered because you haven't just got a load of numbers written down in a little notebook, and you've just got a load of tokens scattered everywhere. So
yeah,
it definitely looks messy if you don't like lots and lots of tokens. It looks messy.
It does feel more like I'm going to get caught out. Like like halfway through a round, I'm thinking, am I like, is something mad about to happen?
I guess the good thing with Legion is, although there are elements which I think in other games would be like a gotcha moment, because there's only 5 factions, I think that's less likely to happen just because it's easier to actually know once you've played for a bit what factions do. So, yeah. I think the main reason, just before we get OT the Legion fanboy in, I think the main thing with Legion, which I don't necessarily immediately go for, it's kind of difficult to explain, so I'm going to do my best, and you might disagree with it. I'm going to use a comparison with SPG just because it makes sense. I don't think that Legion is great at you doing stuff because it makes sense to do it. I think Legion, you do stuff because the rules tell you to do it. What I mean by that is, like, in SBG, the rules don't tell you to make a shield wall. You make a shield wall because that's the most effective use of the rules. But in
Cool.
Legion, you do something because the rules actually like kind of want you to do it. Does that make? I don't really know how to describe it, but it's not quite so.
You're being led by the rules almost.
It's not quite so organic. And I think that actually, when we give it to OT, I think he is going to say that that's a good thing in his opinion, because it's like there's no gray areas. It's all kind of like the rules clearly define stuff. But I kind of quite enjoy that in like SBG, you are kind of like the rule set feels like you're rewarded for doing stuff which actually makes sense, rather than you're doing stuff because the rules tell you have to do it. I don't really know how to express that idea, and I don't really think that it has any bearing on whether a game is good or not. I think it's just a different way of it being done. And I personally, I think, slightly prefer the Middle Earth side. Did that make sense, OT? I'm going to bring you in now, as you can now come in and tell us why you think Legion's amazing.
I think I get what you're saying. I think I'm going to use an example of like how cover works in Legion now, and I think it'll actually back up what you're saying. So in Legion, to get cover from a thing, you have to be within 3 inches of the thing giving you cover. So it doesn't matter if there is like a low wall.
There's no true line of sight as such.
Well, no, there is.
Sorry. Bullshit, straight away.
But so if there's like a wall that gives light cover between you and the person you're shooting, if the unit is too far away from the wall, even if it's blocking an element of line of sight, you won't get any cover.
Mm-hmm.
So while it might feel like in reality you'd be safest if you stand furthest away from people, actually in some cases in Legion, for instance, it's better to move closer to your opponent so you get that light cover from that wall, because you have to stand behind the wall.
I think that counts my point, actually, because I think in real life you want to actually be, directly next to the cover in the case of shooting.
But if somebody had to shoot at you and they were shooting past the wall, wouldn't you then want to be further away rather than stood like, in the middle ground, like close enough to the wall so that you'd...
Well, yeah, you wouldn't want to be in between. You'd want to be right up against them.
Yeah. So you don't have to be right up against something to get cover. You just have to be within like a certain range.
Yes, so I guess that is a bit more gamey.
Yeah.
But I think Legion, it's more kind of like your models are more tokens than Games Workshop games.
Yes.
They represent the concept that a unit is in that area rather than actually exactly in the pose the model is in.
Yeah. Yeah, because so another example is like every model has the same profile. Like Grogu has the same height profile as like Darth Vader, for instance. Like it doesn't matter what the model is, they have the same profile.
Grogu is pretty big. He's famous for it.
But like I think the difference, I would say, Legion versus SBG is I think Legion is willing to make more sacrifices for like the models as like a miniature in a miniatures game to make the game run better than SBG is. Like SBG has more like you literally measure from like the eyes of the model, whereas like for a Legion model you just measure anywhere from the profile to anywhere else on the profile, and if those can see each other, then you can see that model and stuff like that. And like I enjoy that aspect of clarity that Legion gives. And
yeah, that's fair.
I think Legion is, this is going to sound so pretentious, but I'm going to stand by it. I think Legion is very, very self-aware about like what a lot of the player base wants from the game and what they enjoy about it. And I think like what Legion gives you is, once you are familiar with the rule set, is a very slick and a very straightforward game experience. I don't think it necessarily has like well, no, it has depth. It's not that, but like it doesn't feel like you're moving necessarily like an army of your individual miniatures around. I think, as Onod has said, it feels like you're just moving like a series of like pieces on a board. Maybe is often how it feels.
It's more video game, isn't it?
Yeah,
But I think that you're right. It knows what it is.
Yeah.
Like Legion knows that it's not really a narrative game. You can use it to create a narrative.
Yes.
But they don't provide any scenarios focused on Star Wars. It's just choose your cards and it's a game.
Yeah.
And I think Games Workshop games don't really know what they are.
Yes.
Try to be everything. But then you have rule systems which are intended to be narrative, which have then become competitive, and then rule systems which are competitive, which they then slap rules on to make it more narrative, and it isn't really what a lot of people want. And then the only games which really know what they are like Blood Bowl and Necromunda, which kind of are just in their own little universe. And
I mean, 40k knows what it is, doesn't it? At this point,
I don't think so.
But it's become so competitively focused now. Surely, they're like, I'm not saying it's executed well, but like they must be aware of like.
I think a lot of people have been turned off by 10th edition, and it's
a lot of people are turned off by 9th and by 8th. Like,
yeah, but it's different groups every time.
Yeah,
10th edition, all the casual players hate it. 9th edition, the comp players hated it.
Yeah.
8th edition, I think everyone was reasonably bloated and became an issue as time went on. But they just keep swinging back and forward.
Yep.
They make it more flavorful, and then it becomes bloated.
Yeah.
But then they streamline it, and then people complain that stuff isn't got enough flavor.
Yep.
I don't know. I think 40k is just a bit of a. I don't think any edition of 40k has ever been agreed upon to be ideal.
No.
I think that different people always like different rule sets for different reasons, and I think that Games Workshop's currently in a phase where they at least emphasize in what they talk about the competitive side more.
Yeah.
But I think that doesn't necessarily reflect the community. It just reflects the people who are loudest.
Yeah.
Because ultimately the people who make YouTube videos are the ones who are really invested and go to tournaments. But the biggest channels, the lore channels.
Yeah, it's true.
But anyway. How would we rate it? OT, do you want to rate Star Wars Legion on our scale?
It's fucking. It's S tier for me, right? Like, I mean, I'm massively biased because I play it all the time and I think it's my favorite game. But like, I'm not expecting you two to put it at S.
I think we agreed it was A+.
Oh, sorry, A+.
Matt?
For me, just because it's a bit harder to get into, and you have to. Granted, once you're sort of familiar with the game, it probably leads to quite smooth games. But for me, there is that little bit of barrier. And while I have, quite an extensive separatist army, I haven't felt massively compelled to learn the new rules. So for me, it's B or A or whatever the one below the top is.
The one below the top is A.
Wow,
A then.
That's quite high praise.
There you go.
I think it is a very good game. I think you just have to get into it a bit.
Yeah.
I think also it has to be the right game for you because there isn't much flexibility in how you can play. Like, MESBG is a better narrative game than Legion, and I don't think it's particularly close. Like, I think if you wanted to do like I don't know, the Fellowship campaign or whatever, right? Like, I just don't think Legion is designed for smaller scale narrative type games at this point. Like, I think ours worked fairly well, but we used an AI and like we really created like a quite specific scenario that worked. I think it would be easier to make MESBG work for narrative than Legion.
Yeah, I think Legion's very competent at what it does.
Yeah.
It's just, it's not really something that fussed by. I'm happy to play like some casual games of Legion now and again. Like I don't hate it so much that I'm actively like I'll never play it.
Yeah.
But I think it's like for me, it's got to be in a scenario where I'm gonna actually enjoy what we're doing. I don't think I'm really that about doing a kind of proper versus match.
I don't think any of us would enjoy that.
Yeah, I think it probably deserves, in my mind, a B, but I'd probably say personally, if I was playing it how it was meant to be played, it would be a C. I think I'll go with like a low B because I think it's competent enough to warrant not actually being. So I'll just stick it right in the middle.
Okay, so I think that probably averages to like a low A or something.
I think it average out to an A, won't it? Yeah. And then finally, Line Rampant.
I didn't really get to play it, so.
This was better than I thought it was going to be. For those who've watched the video, you will know I really got shafted in our video, and I thought it would make me angrier than it did. Because basically, before we started, Onod was like, I'm a bit worried you're not going to like this game because you might just get screwed over, you might not get to move anything, and your units might just flee the field. And in both of those things happened, and it still managed to be an interesting game, which I quite liked.
Yeah, it was surprising how well it managed to like go right down to the wire, despite the fact that it had that swing in it.
Yeah,
and like both games were actually very close, weren't they? Because we played one that we didn't record just to learn the rules set, and that one also went right down to the kind of final unit on each side too. So it does seem, if you use the army list that's suggested and you don't try and break it, it does actually seem to create fairly balanced games, which is interesting.
Was that coming down to the wire due to the game system, do you think, or the way you played it, or?
I think it is actually the game system. I don't think either of us really made like brutal mistakes or anything.
No.
I think it's just always a case of kind of like my army clearly would like absolutely stomp OT's army, but because I can't make all of my units charge at the same time because they're so difficult to move.
Yeah.
Like OT essentially spent, like the game that we recorded, OT was essentially fighting only like 50% and to 75% of my army for the vast majority of the game. So although I did a lot of damage, he ultimately could wear me out. And then it was just a case of like, could my last unit come in and clear up? And it wasn't even really a guarantee. The thing that really won it for me was that obviously OT rolled so many snake eyes. But actually beyond that, if OT hadn't it wasn't even like losing your leader. If OT had been what's it called for broken in the game?
Battered.
If OT's unit that were on the ford when they fought the crossbowmen hadn't got battered, he would have won the game because he would have been on the ford for enough turns to just win. It was only because they were battered that he wasn't scoring points, and it gave my last cav unit with William the Conqueror enough time to move up. So even then it was like, it was very much down to the wire. There were like multiple things going on that meant that either of us could have won in different situations. And then like my cav unit fled the field that was depleted. But yeah, no, it created a interesting moment, didn't it? Like my commander just sweeping in, to win the day. So it was quite,
and I think Lion Rampant is, or do I want to say this? Can I stand by it? Yeah, all right, we'll throw it out and see what happens. I think Lion Rampant is better at creating a story than it is about creating rewarding gameplay.
Yeah, which I think is what you want in a historical game.
Yes.
You want it to feel like a battle is playing out.
Yeah.
And you are loosely commanding.
Yeah.
But it fits medieval battles that your units aren't going to do exactly what you want them to do. They're going to do roughly what you want them to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that kind of felt about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I actually enjoyed it a little more than I thought I was going to. I think my main concern with it was that I always knew that I was going to enjoy it, but I was concerned that that wouldn't be reciprocated, and then I wouldn't feel like I was having a great time because
I mean, it didn't look like OT was enjoying it when he played it.
But
well,
because the difference I'll make between MESBG and Lion Rampant is that when the game's going badly for you in Lion Rampant, it's not then that your opponent can always immediately punish that. Whereas in MESBG, I mean, essentially this is coming back to my rant about fucking priority and heroic moves. But like when that stuff starts to go badly and it starts to slip away from you, like you feel powerless effectively. Whereas like because Lion Rampant, you inverted commas can always come back or whatever, like random stuff can happen, and like maybe your opponent won't get to punish the mistake by moving up their powerful cavalry unit, right, and things like that. You do have a shot, and like I think that was the difference, because like I rolled some like generationally terrible dice.
Oh yeah, my God.
And like there was still actually, I reckon, a reasonable shot of me winning the game. Whereas like if I'd lost, you know, a couple of priorities error in MESBG or whatever, or lost a couple of move offs, like the game could have been done. So like I think that was something because I assumed when my leader fled the field, like I said at the time, I was like, Snake Eyes, the game is over. And when it happened, I was like, okay, the game is over. But actually it wasn't. And like I think that was just me assuming it would be like MESBG.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously, like we slightly house ruled Lion Rampant, so if you play it as a skirmish game, you can do stuff like your leaders can challenge each other, and then you would just like randomly, like one leader kills the other.
Yeah.
So I guess it is kind of designed in a way that you aren't completely out if your leader dies, because that would be a lot more common if you did it as a skirmish.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Yeah, Mare, what did you think watching it?
I thought it was quite entertaining. I thought the adaptation to the scale we were using was fine and was doable. Again, Lion Rampant's one of those games that you can adapt to different things. We could have been doing it with melee space aliens if we really wanted to.
Well, funny you say that. There is actually, because it's been so popular, there are multiple versions which do adapt it for exactly that.
Oh, right. Okay, well, there you go.
There's a game called Xenos Rampant, which is the sci-fi version. There's a game called Dragon Rampant, which gives you bonus rules for making it fantasy. And then there's a couple others for different historical time periods as well. So yeah, if you like the system, like you can do various different things, and they have slight tweaks on how the command system works depending on making it fit the theme. But yeah.
No, I thought it was great. Watching the sort of comeback almost happen was pretty funny to watch.
Oh, it was so cruel. Like there was 2 times where I was like, actually, I could win this, and both times it was just ripped away, and I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, because like, yeah, it was my leader dying, and then me having 2 units heading for the forward, and I was like, right, we've got this, and then one of them instantly fled after losing 1 casualty, and I was like, right, the game's done, and then Onod's unit fled, and then I headed for the forward, I was like, right, we've got this, and then William came in and just crushed me, and like,
it's a shame we didn't get on camera because we didn't think anything was going to happen. But when my tiny unit of like 2 bases left killed 1 unit, and then your massive unit fled. That was peak your rolling there. Yeah. I mean, most of your guys just ran away. Like I didn't even.
You barely killed anybody.
Yeah. I just chipped off a few from each unit, and they just ran.
They were like, nope. Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna give Lion Rampant an A. It's not like, I wouldn't necessarily say like everyone has to go and buy it now, but I think like actually, if you are looking for a medieval type game and you want to do it at a quite grand scale or a smaller scale, I think this works super well.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, it is pretty much one of the de facto games that gets recommended to people who want to start doing historical stuff, but not too detailed, just because it kind of covers such a broad region. And it's just kind of, you just roll dice and have a good time. You don't have to get too bogged down and stuff.
Yeah. And
so
actually,
yeah, I'd probably agree.
The rules have a bit of depth, but after 2 games, we were already doing, like the stuff in like MESBG where like, you could almost like jump ahead as it were because you know what's going to happen with the other person and things like that. Like we were starting to do that, like with all the dice rolls and stuff. We were starting to really quickly work out how many casualties were going, and like we knew when a unit would be battered, and you start to remember courage values and stuff. So it does actually get slicker quite quick, which I think is good. Like I think a rule set that once you learn it becomes like really instinctive, I think is really well designed.
Yeah, no, it was actually surprisingly slick. Because I think when you look at the profile, I don't know if it's the way it's formatted as like a big box or whether it's
so wide.
It's just intimidating because there's like a lot of stats.
Yeah.
But once you actually learn it, you're like, it just runs really smoothly.
Yeah, it did flow quite quickly. Even I understood what was going on halfway through.
It's also an interesting blend between I go, you go, alternating activations, because it's like some terms were I go, you go, and some terms were alternating activations depending on how quickly we failed our like orders. Like sometimes you'd be like straight back in, and like because you got to roll dice when your opponent attacked you. That also helped a little bit with the engagement. That there weren't like enormous stretches where you didn't do anything. You were always kind of involved and that sort of thing. So
again, like it's a callback to Legion, but like I think games that you are always not necessarily always making decisions, because I don't think that's necessarily possible. You can always be making decisions in a game, but a game where you're always engaged in what's happening, whether that's like using tokens or like even just rolling dice, like it feels like you can do something. And like even in that last roll, right, where my skirmishers were against your knights, in a game of SPG, like I wouldn't have rolled any dice there, but against your guys, it was like, okay, you need 4 6s on 12 dice, and I rolled 3 6s, and like it was actually really close to like possibly doing a final wound and maybe killing your leader and you fleeing the battlefield. So like that was good.
I think it's about always making you think about the game, because it's like, I think the problem with games like 40k where planes that you're like turn 1 your army just gets wiped out is you're not really thinking to yourself, what am I going to do in the next turn? You're going, I need to wait to see how fucking well they roll before I know what I can do in my next turn. And I think in Line Rampant, you are genuinely like having a little bit of that kind of like, okay, well, I'm going to start thinking about what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to start thinking about where my units are going to move, what I want to activate first, sort of thing. So that there's enough going on for you to be thinking about it. Mad, did you want to give it a score? I know you haven't played it, but
I think I would like to see a little bit more complexity in the game, but it does seem like a game that's worth having and everyone should have on their bookshelf. So I'm gonna say an A.
I think that's fair. Yeah. And I don't know, I think if we like the system, maybe we would try one of the others. I actually do own one of the other ones for...
Of course you do.
kind of like the 1800s to early 1900s time period. For my... eventually I'm going to do the sort of Americans versus Native Indians, which I've got 6mm stuff for, which has featured in podcasts in the past, and I've painted up a little bit of it. But it's one of those projects which will probably be a way off me actually ever finishing. But yeah. But yeah, I mean that one's interesting because that one has guaranteed orders, but only for certain things. So it's like some units can guarantee that they will move. Some units can guarantee they will charge. And it's like, so you get a little bit of a kind of mixture of, okay, I want to shoot with this unit, but I'd have to roll a dice, or I can guarantee that they will move. So maybe I will move them and guarantee that I get to go. So it kind of adds like a slightly different dynamic to the thing rather than it just being I have to roll for it sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
But yeah, cool. Is there anything else we need to talk about? Anything there is, because we've already talked about it.
Yep. Yeah, no, I think that's Other Games October.
That was Other Games October.
Get ready for Other Games 2025.
Yeah, I think Other Games October might turn into we just now do more games.
Yeah.
I quite like the idea though, just like we've picked up some games behind the scenes and we're just going to play them. So we'll probably, I think we might do it next year.
As cynical as we are being, I think we are going to end up playing the new edition. Like, I don't think.
I'm sure we will.
I don't think we completely ignore it, but like, I think.
Yeah.
It's come at a slightly unfortunate time where we're not at our most motivated to play MESBG, and like, I think we all kind of are waiting to see what the new edition is going to look like before we're like, oh, we're definitely going to commit to it, because I don't have the desire to spend 100 and something quid on some new books to not use them.
I mean, if it comes out and it's very clearly provides, for example, like a better narrative experience, then I think I'd get it. I think the problem for me is I'm just kind of actually thinking, will I actually get enough use out of this book to warrant spending all the investment cost? Like, am I actually going to get enough games of this? And I don't know if I would. So,
TBC.
Well, you can just use our books.
Well, yeah, that might end up being kind of thing, because I'm probably not going to be going to tournaments. So if it is just a case of I'm playing a new edition and I'm not owning the rule books, then yeah, that might be that might be how it ends up. But we'll see how it goes.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, everyone. Next month in the pods, will we be talking about the new edition? I guess it depends a little bit on when Games Workshop. We might be.
We'll see.
We might. We could, I guess, just not do December's pod until it comes out. I mean, we're assuming it's coming out in December.
I think it will.
It would make sense because the film's coming out, but
I think
it might be like a pre-order when the film comes out, and then it's actually released.
They'll want to push it before Christmas, surely. Like,
you'd think.
Like, anyway, we'll see. We'll see. I think it's.
We will either be back with something, or we will be talking about the new edition. But essentially, we're getting close now. We're just going to do a big new edition chat and actually talk about things in a bit more depth than just the very brief kind of mutterings that we've done in the pods, just because we felt like we had to say something.
Yep.
Because obviously the internet's craving our opinion.
Because if there's one thing the internet's short of at the moment, it's opinions.
All of the Middle-earth nerds are just like, what did the breakfast show think? Said no one.
I mean, because they're already getting their opinions decided for them by other people, so they don't need ours.
If you want contradictory opinions, you can get literally people saying the exact opposite. If you go through all the channels,
sometimes in the same video, to be honest, if you actually listen to the words they're saying. But anyway, that's fine.
Either the world is burning down, or you should suck it up and fucking deal with it. Or this is a good thing. I have heard some people say that. Yeah. It could be.
Can you put that curve up that I like so much, or not?
If you have, if you could upload it to Drive where the hobby images are, that will jog my memory to do it.
I'll put it in there.
There we go. Bye, everyone.
Boy.